brings me to my next question, Jesse, and I know it's not in the what we talked about, but I'm sure you'll have no problem with it. In room versus on site at the moment. What is there a better way? Obviously, different circumstances.
As an auctioneer, I'd be lying if I said I don't like in-room more.
Of course.
That's not necessarily true. I don't necessarily like it more. I love the flexibility that an in-room gives me in terms of the fact that we can do more work in a shorter period of time in a more controlled environment. So I love that. On site, there's nothing like the buzz of a cracking on-site auction. There really isn't. But one thing I said, and I did an article again about this one about a month or so ago, or 2 months ago, and specifically talked about each business has their own individual set of goals and aspirations as to what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And in-rooms or on-site auctions will work specifically with or against those goals and aspirations. One of the people to bring up, McGrath, who are obviously independent, we don't work with them, massive on-site auction specialists. Now, it doesn't mean that they're doing it wrong. It's something that they have specified in and do it very, very well. I've got offices that I work with that do in-room auctions every single week, no matter what, and they feel that it gives them more efficiency and also more control over the outcome. There's no leaf blowers, barking dogs, planes, traffic, all the extra things that you come
We've all had that happen. Yeah, we've all had that happen. Now, it's another question which I haven't got written, but it's something that you were in REB about yesterday. Was the Monday night or the weekday auction versus the weekend. Now, found that was interesting. Can you quickly explain that article? Because I think that is, for an agent to get your head around, why would I even consider not doing a Saturday auction?
So one of the things I say about getting your auctions off a Saturday is that, in my opinion, a Saturday is obviously a great day for an on-site auction if that's what you're doing. But if you're a business that has larger volume, now, if you're just doing 2 auctions a month, that's fine. You can maybe run Saturdays. But if you're a business that's running between 10 and 20 or 30 transactions a month, and you're trying to do those 10, 20, and 30 auctions on a Saturday, that the auction no longer takes the 1 hour or the 30 minutes that it takes to do the open. You're there an hour early. You're there for an hour. You've got a half an hour exchange, a little celebration, then you're off to the next one. So before you know it, it's taken 2.5, 3 hours out of your Saturday, in which should be your busiest day to open property and to meet buyers. So if people are moving pretty much the auction off the Saturday and into a midweek, they're now saying that Saturday is going to be opening property and meeting buyers, and Wednesday night or Thursday night each week is going to be the time that we stick around for an hour and a half and we do 4 or 5 auctions. And to give you some context, we can do about 5 or 6 auctions an hour in rooms. We can do about 1 auction to maybe 1.5 auctions an hour on site. So obviously, as an auctioneer, it works better for us, but for the agency that's larger, your efficiency level is absolutely maximized.
Fair enough. Now, what is buyer sentiment like at the moment? We've heard, I'm not going to go into everything. I think everyone knows where we are. How are the buyers? How are they?
So mixed. One of my auctioneers summed it up beautifully the other day. He said it's almost street by street at the moment. It's just as likely I'll turn up and do a property that'll go $1 million over reserve. I did one last week. My next auction I turned up to, 0 people. Right? An hour later, different suburb, different property, different product altogether. But that's how patchy it is at the moment. There is, I suppose, the agents that are watching need to understand that no matter the market conditions, people are always needing to transact. People are getting divorced. People are downsizing. People are upsizing. People are having kids. People need to move for jobs. And as a result, there will always be a natural turn of property within our marketplace. What goes out of the marketplace in different market dynamics is those that are selling who are opportunistic, who are wanting to get a premium price in a particular moment. So that obviously changes. But at the moment, I'd say buyer sentiment is a little more encouraging than I thought it was, Nick. I thought we'd be in for some pretty tough conditions by this point. But I can honestly say Sydney continues to surprise me.
And do you think, Jesse, and we spoke about this off air before we come on, and I said to you that I feel like it's kind of like we're coming out of COVID. It's like, you know what? We've got a pretty good idea where we are. We know kind of what's going to happen. Yes, it's been difficult. We might, get hit again once or twice, but we kind of know that, and I suppose almost prepared for that and factoring that in. So it's almost like, let's just get on with it. That's kind of what I'm seeing in my area. Is it's kind of like, look, we kind of know where we're at. We know it's not going to be a picnic, but you know, I'm also not going to stop life and plans for that.
I'd agree.
How can an agent keep a buyer engaged through a 4-week campaign?
Yeah.
Question.
Great question. I'm going to go back to a very quick thing. So I'm a country boy. I grew up in a town called Young, the cherry capital of Australia. I'm on a farm there with my family. Obviously, I grew up around the stock world. But the reason I mention this is that if you talk to country people about the idea of auction, the idea is that you turn up to a marketplace, there's a box of apples, and if you don't sell that box of apples on the day, what happens, Nick?
You throw them out.
You throw them out, but what happens? They go stale, right?
They go stale. They go stale. Yeah.
Exactly right. No, and the same applies with property, is that the longer a property stays on the market, the more of a stench it gets attached to it. The more that people get concerned about what's wrong with those apples. Why has no one bought them in the previous weeks? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that it is a process whereby you have to understand, and you must be explaining to the buyers the motivation of the owner and why it is that that owner has picked this process, and why it is that that owner has every intention on the 27th of July 2023 to sell that property today. All I can say to you, Nick, is that this buyer, these vendors are retiring. They're moving up to Noosa. They bought a property up there, and this is the end of their life here in Sydney. So I can tell you they want it sold. That's how you hold a buyer on. If you're half-baked and half-pregnant the whole way through and not convincing them of the owner's intentions to sell, they will find another asset where an owner is more convinced that they want to sell it.
Now, I want to throw something at you because I wrote it for someone last week, and I think this is a really important thing to bring up when we're focusing on a 4-week campaign. I believe, and you've heard me say it, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, I love automation. I love all these systems and processes and tech and all that kind of thing. It makes my business run so much easier, but we are in a relationship business. And I wrote something for a client of mine, and it said, if you were going to go, now I don't know, look, I don't obviously drive a Lamborghini, you know, would you believe it? But if you're going to, what would they be worth? $500,000? I've got no idea.
Yeah, I'd reckon.
They would roll out the red carpet for you. They would concierge service. They would, you know, they would be on the phone. They'd be inviting you to canapes and things like that. And look, we've just got a new car seat or a new floor mat or whatever. They'd let you know, if someone's going to spend $500,000 here in Sydney East on a studio, we just add them to a database and send them a weekly update. And I think that we're in what am I trying to say? That concierge service for buyers, I don't know if the automation, and I see it with a lot of agents, they'll just send a weekly, this is our open home time, or if a buyer's interested, have you got the contract? Have you got this? It's how important is that relationship between the agent and the buyer during a 4-week campaign or 6-week, whatever it is, to keep someone there? Because look, as you would know, if someone gets a great offer, 9 times, and they know it's a great offer, sometimes you just got to go early. You've got to sell prior. But if it is an auction where you kind of know that you're going to have a few people interested because of circumstances, someone that's interested on the first day, how can you maintain? Look, what do you even talk about?
Yeah, and obviously that is one of the big challenges, right? When you've got a buyer in a market whereby urgency is being created through alternative stock options, and by alternative stock options, I mean other property for these parties to look at. That is always your challenge, is trying to get them to hold on to this asset. Gone are the days, right, of 2020 portion of 2020, but 2021, 2022, where, and I mean this with no disrespect, a monkey could have done what we did, right? It was, we'd put a property up online, people would turn up, we would sell that asset. It is now our job as agents to do what we're supposed to do, and that is to be sales agents, to sell the property to your buyer, to convince your buyer why the asset that you have is the best asset for what they are trying to achieve. And we talk about, you know, auction floor dialogue. When you're trying to get money out of a buyer right at the pointy end of the auction, you don't say, sir, can I get another 20,000? You say, sir, you told me that you've had enough of living in your apartment block in Zetland. You told me that you want to get your family out of that and you want a backyard for them to enjoy it. Yes. This is the opportunity for you to achieve that goal. And to do that, you need to spend another $20,000. Are you willing to do it? So, without going too deeply into that, that's what you focus on. You focus on motivation, and you focus on the agent's job to actually be a sales agent, not just a marketer. Anybody can market. Be a sales agent.
Yeah. Now, I've got one last question before I jump into that. I just want to highlight as well the fact that auction it's what I was always taught, is a performance date. It is one aspect of the campaign. There's 3 times you can sell, and it's not always a bad thing to pass a property in. If you've done the work, 9 times out of 10 they sell. You probably know the stats after auction that they'd sell afterwards, but prior, on the day, and after auction. And I think it's just equally as important to set your owners up and say, look, if we don't sell at auction, we have a post-auction plan.
Can I give you some stats on that, Nick? So I'll give an example in our business, right? So one of the things that I talk to my agents about all the time is that, albeit the fact, and the clearance rate, this has actually gotten a little better at the moment because the clearance rate is so high. But when a clearance rate sits at approximately 63 to 66%, which is about where we were, we're probably back in the mid-70s now. That means effectively 66 or 65% of the properties offered on that day have sold at or before the auction day. What no one talks about is how much sells between that date and a further 2 weeks. So what our company have done is started to track that data. And what we've worked out is, on an average clearance rate of 65%, if you incorporate a further 2 weeks beyond that campaign, that clearance rate goes from 65% to 88%. Right. Which means that 88% of properties listed for auction in Sydney are selling within 42 days. That's an incredibly buoyant market, and that is incredibly solid statistic to provide to your owners that are concerned about a current clearance rate.
And that's thank you for bringing that up, because that is a really powerful point, because we hear all these 68, 70% clearance rates. That's what, like you said, that's what everyone's reporting on. That is what your marketplace is hearing. And this is where, and I don't know if you've seen it, I hate the RBA announcements, because I see on the Tuesday afternoons, it's the same Canberra image. Everyone's saying interest rates have gone up. So great. What does that mean? It's adding no value. But if you can go back to your vendor and say, listen, clearance rate 66, 70%, whatever, but 88% within 42 days, that means that, out of 100 properties, 88 are selling within 42 days. It's actually bloody good result.
It's crazy. And then you compare that same process to private treaty days on market, and it is vastly different. You'll find that days on market drastically reduces when you utilize auction. And again, for agents to understand, make no mistake, your job is to get every dollar for your owner, but it's also to transact multiple properties to earn a revenue. We come to work to make money. We come to work to feed our families, and ensuring that you can produce more results in a shorter period of time will always increase your end return on the day.
Okay, mate, last question I've got for you. You are a country boy. I've got some country members and people who live, outside. I am aware there is a world outside of Sydney.
Yes, there is.
Specialised in Sydney. There are some areas where auction is not the norm. For whatever reason. Now, I don't know if digital has changed that with all these online platforms and things like that. To someone out there who may not be in metro, who might be in rural or country or regional, I'm not sure if they're all the same. Sorry.
Yeah, you're close.
Okay. What would be your advice to someone who's been toying with the idea of an auction? They might not be quite there yet because they either don't understand it, they haven't done it. I know, like from my own experience, I am a gentleman trained agent in the early years. I was trained auctions are bad, open homes are bad, all that kind of stuff. That's when I was in Newcastle. I came to Sydney's eastern suburbs. I had that kicked out of me very quickly.
Very quick, yeah.
To the point where everything was auction, everything was open home. But for someone that wants to do it, has been toying with the idea of doing it, but is nervous, number one, about are they confident to put an auction? What does it, what's involved with it? What would you say to someone who is 50-50 about whether they should start in a marketplace that's not doing it?
So the first thing is that every area suits auction. It's a ludicrous idea to assume that an area doesn't suit auction. However, I do understand that a marketplace can be less educated to auction. The only properties that don't necessarily suit auction, and I'm happy to admit this, is properties with complexity, right?
Yes.
So if buyers need to do weeks and weeks of due diligence to try and determine exactly what they can or will or won't do with that asset, probably not the right one to put to auction. So the style of property is really the determiner as to what you're going to run with auction. And then most importantly, the next step after that is that you, the agent, must understand the principles of auction and the ideas of what an auction is there to achieve, but also the results that can achieve for your vendor as well. And then from there, understanding how you run the process. And I actually wrote a little thing, and I'll even read this out to you if you don't mind, Nick, as well. But this is how I believe auctions can help an agent win more listings. Firstly, you harness the power of urgency. So you set a specific date to try and do that. Secondly, you leverage on competitive bidding environment. So you bring multiple parties together to achieve a premium result. Then you accelerate the sales process by reducing the days on market. And finally, you increase your brand exposure by showcasing a transparent auction success. And if you can add this auction to your arsenal, a tool in your arsenal, it will give your business more success and more opportunity to thrive. There's no denying that. If you look at particularly things like the REB Top 100, I've never looked at this, but I'd almost guarantee the top 20 are all auction listers.
Yeah, I've looked at it. Yes. Yeah, you're correct. And you just hit the nail on the head then, transparency. We're in a business where people don't like us anyway, at the best of times. We're always doing something dodgy in their eyes, but transparency is key in business. And I mean, even just bringing it back to my social, I post a lot of screenshots with results. There's, for me in the social world, a lot of companies out there are promising all this stuff. Maybe I'm a bit lazy. I put screenshots out there because it's just, hey, this is what we do. It's transparent. Everyone can see it. It's the same with auction. And I think that's the thing. You want to see who your competition is. You want to see what's going on. Like you said, you've built that competition, you've built that urgency. And from what I find, and especially just speaking here in Sydney's East, I'm more comfortable with an auction because that's the normal done thing here. And I think everyone kind of knows how to be.
You know what I'd say about that too, Nick, is that often agents get nervous about how am I going to be viewed? Are people going to think I'm dodgy? Not if you run an auction. Not if you open up the doors and you let everybody in and you give everybody a bidder's card, and then they eventually run themselves up. If it makes $300,000 over reserve, then so be it. There's no backroom deals. There's no gazumping. There's none of that. And this is why so often now, if agents have got an auction in a month's time and they've got crazy amount of interest, they're calling us saying, mate, can you come on Wednesday night? We'll just run a quick auction. Let's put this to bed, because we don't want to look like we're misleading our agents or our buyers, sorry.
Okay, so I know we've gone well over the time that we allocated, but
I'm an auctioneer, I can talk.
I do just want to touch on that, and it's coming back to what we were saying about how do you keep a buyer interested for 4 weeks. Now, I've had to do this. Sometimes I feel, a little bit slack, and I wouldn't say it's ever backfired, but buyers can sometimes feel like they've been led up the garden path. But I've had situations where it's a 4-week auction campaign, first open home on the Saturday, offers are coming in, go to your vendor, like, this is great. You have your second one, and it's like, shit, we need to do something here because I can't keep this interest for another 2 weeks is a long time. What do you suggest? Let's bring the auction forward. And it's, you always try to go back to everyone and just say, look, listen, this is the situation. It was scheduled. All we're doing is moving the date. We've got interest. The owner's instructions are just bring the date forward. We want to make sure that we're giving you ample time. And that's where I think, and especially in this day and age, have your contract for sale downloadable on your website. Have a pest and building and strata inspection. Just get it. Tell your owners just to get it. Have it available. Send it out. Make that a part of your thing. And just make it easy for people to buy. And I think that's the whole thing. Make it easy. So, but people can do that.
Make the process simple, right? I mean, the reality is that if you're getting good quality interest, just be open with people. Guys, we're moving the auction forward because we've received multiple offers all at the same level. And as a result, my owner wants to run the auction to see what they can do. And we're can't run it in 2 weeks' time. Otherwise, we'll lose all the buyers. Mr. Jones, if that means that you're not comfortable proceeding, we've got a lot of people that will. We'd hate to see you miss out on it, but you know, that's the decision that our owners have made. But being open and transparent, and this is the final thing I will say, is that too often in real estate, back in the day, we're convinced that the best way to be a good real estate agent is to be deceptive, to be misleading. It is absolute garbage. The best real estate agents are honest and are giving their buyers and their vendors very reliable, good quality advice so that they can rely upon it to make good quality decisions. They're the best agents. The ones that are misleading are the ones that are not making money, I can assure you.
And this, like I said earlier, this is a relationship business. And if you want a career, longevity in this industry, you know, I'm not sure how long you've been in it. I've been in it 18 years. You don't have a career that long if you're doing the wrong thing and doing the dodge. Jesse, thank you very much for sitting down with me today. Laura from your office has been very kind enough to give us a benefits of pre-scheduling your auctions PDF, and what are the benefits of auction for anyone who's watching this to that way.
Looks good, mate.
I'm trying to move one bit here. For anyone who's watching this, pass on to your owners as a third party, as why they should look at booking in and doing something with auction now. So we will post Jesse's details everywhere. Jesse from Auction Works specialises here in Sydney. Is that it, or where else?
Mainly Sydney. We do Queensland, Victoria, but mainly Sydney, yeah.
Beautiful. Mate, thank you very much for sitting down with me today.
Mate, thank you so much for including me. Lovely to see you as always.
You too. Thanks, mate.